answer there. Okay, so what is our goal? Our goal is that we want to connect to an infinite God, which is basically impossible, which if you use your seichel, it seems impossible for a finite human being to connect to an infinite God. So we have to realize that we actually have tools to do this. And what tools do we have? So we have to since we're creating Hashem's image, and we discussed that an image doesn't mean essence, but it means how Hashem chose to reveal himself to us. Hashem has 10 spheres, and we're creating Hashem's image. We have 10 soul powers. Those 10 soul powers are divided into two groups. We have 3 intellectual powers and 7 emotional ones. So we, at any time, could tap into our neshama. We don't have to wait to go to an inspiring class in order for our neshama to wake up. We could talk to our neshama and wake it up at any time. And how do we start? Through the first of the 10 powers, which is chachma, then bina, etc. And we could activate our neshama at any time. And the first tool, the first power that we have is chachma. Chachma is compared to a seed. It's compared to a flash of lightning. It's a aha moment. It's very, very powerful, but very, very fleeting. So you could have great ideas as soon as you start davening Shema Esrei. By the time you're done, take it 3 steps back. 90% of all your brilliant ideas just flew out the window. Just as fast as it comes, it could disappear. Sometimes you walk into a room and you're like, "Wait, what? Why am I here? What did I want to do?" There was a chachma, it was a very low grade chachma, but then you got distracted, and then you're in the next room, like, oh, well, you completely have no idea why you entered this room. So chachma, we concluded last time that chachma is not just a person who's very, very smart and has a lot of wisdom. And if you have a problem or issue, you have to go to the chacham to ask for advice. But actually, chachma is something completely different. Chachma is when you're not stuck in the information that you already know. Chachma is when you're able to take everything that you know, put it by the door, put it away, and you're able to open yourself to something new. You're coming to a class with a brand new, with a clean canvas. And you're open to learn something brand new. And a Talmid Chacham is someone who is constantly in a state of learning and learning from everyone. It says in Pirkei Avos, who is smart is someone who's a Chacham, halaymid mikol adam. When you're open to be able to learn from everyone, from a book, from another person, or from just a splash of lightning that Hashem so kindly, so graciously gives to you. That is Chachma. It's an ability to transcend the self, to connect with something higher. And it's also that feeling when you go to a class, you learn something, you're so inspired, and you come home and you can't even repeat it. You can't explain it because it's just in a state of chachma and it hasn't yet come down. So chachma is great. Chachma is the first step, but then we need bina. We need bina to anchor it, to make it relatable, so we should be able to benefit from it. If you have just like a chachma is represented by the father and bina is represented by the mother. If you just have a seed, but you don't have where for it to develop, then there's no benefit to the seed. But you can't have a pregnancy without a seed. You can't have bina without chachma. You can't have chachma. You could have chachma, but it's not going to last without bina. Bina itself, chachma is represented by the letter yud, the tiniest, smallest letter. It's that flash, it's that brainstorm. And also, it's you being able to shrink yourself as small as you can. The smaller you are, the less me and the less I there is, the more you're open to Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu, he may have not been the cleverest person. Maybe Shlomo Melech was the cleverest person, but Moshe was the most humble person. He was transparent, that Hashem could speak through him. And Moshe was an anav. He was very, very small. Very, very small means that I put myself aside and I'm open to Hashem's light coming through me. That's what so you have to have bittul. Bittul and chachma are synonymous with each other. And so bittul and chachma is the ability to shrink myself very, very small, to open myself up to something higher. That's chachma. And then we have bina. So if chachma is represented by the letter yud, bina is represented by the letter hey. So every letter, if you ever see a sefer write a Torah, every letter starts with a yud, and then from the yud it spreads, it continues. So the letter hey is actually the bina process is a 3-4 part process. The first part of bina is that I have to draw from the yud, and I'm going to draw, and I'm going to get more breath. Widen it. Just like everything on this earth has 3 dimensions. It has width, it has length, and it has depth. And the same is with Bina. We're trying to take this idea, this flash of lightning, this seed, and we're trying to give it length, which is breath, breath, which is width, length, and depth. And then there's even a 4th layer. We're trying to be able to anchor this thing, to anchor it, to benefit from it, to make it sustainable, to make it relatable to us. So the first step is the breath. And in this step 1 of breath, I'm trying to get as much information as I can. To get more and more information, like Google it, and try to get more and more information about this topic, and compare it and contrast it to other things. And then once I have a ton of information, all that information is in my head. So what happens is at many dining room tables around the world, right? What happens? It's in my head, and then I expect that my spouse or my children will understand me, but it's in my head. So they get frustrated. I already took a lot of time to build a whole building in my head. But if I expect the people around me to know that information, it's not going to work. It's in my head. It's not in their head. I have a lot of information, but I never brought it down. So now, like a fireman, I have to go down that pole and have to bring down the information, and does it make sense? I can have a great idea. I'm gonna be a CEO of this multi-million-dollar company. That's great. But what is the company gonna look like? What's it gonna sell? Are people gonna be interested in buying it? Is there a need for it? Just because I have an idea doesn't mean that anyone else is interested in it. How am I gonna market it? So all those questions is part of bringing it down. Does this thing actually make sense? Is it relatable? Does anyone else care about it? That is all breath, bringing it down to reality. And then comes, welcome. So that's the first 2 parts of the hay. The breath and the length, bringing down the chachma, making it relatable. Then there's that broken foot. Now that broken foot, it's a broken foot, but really that broken foot represents depth. Not that it should just be 2-dimensional, but it should be able to stand. If I have the length, I have the breadth and the length, it's not going to stand. On the paper, it works. But if I want 3 dimensions, the hay is the 3rd dimension to anchor it and to make it 3D. Thanks so much. That's what makes it in a 3D, and that is depth. Now, depth is completely the opposite of chachma. Chachma is a great idea. But if I have this great idea, it could only happen one time. I'm never going to have this exact brainstorm again. And it's very fleeting, and it comes once, and that's it. Depth, on the other hand, is something that I could revisit the Tanya or the Parsha of the week or a pasuk in Chumash, whatever it is. I could revisit it for an infinite amount of times, and every time I revisit it, I uncover another layer. So there's no end. There's no end to depth. I laugh because I spent 5 years learning Tanya, wrote 100 Tanya poems, and then people want it again. And I'm like, why do you want it again? We're already finished. We finished. Let's go do something else. But that's a big, huge mistake. That's a big, huge mistake. Maybe when we wrote the poems, maybe that was chachma. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, but to every single time, and every single time you listen to the same shir again, that's the beauty of Torah. There's a new layer, there's a new depth. You understand it differently. Maybe you're older and you have more life experience, and then you see it from a different angle. And that's also part of Bina. Part of Bina is not just, okay, there's an idea, great, and now I could explain it to you. But now, what happens when someone throws me a question that I didn't expect? Can I still answer it? And does this idea, is it true in all places and in all times and for all people? So that's a question that you have to ask yourself. Can this information stand throughout, in all times and all places? And if yes, then you actually understand it. If you're giving a class and you say, and the whole point is that, it means you don't know, you have no idea what you have no idea what you're talking about. If you say, and the whole point is, if you knew what the point is, you would just say it. If you have to say, and the whole point of the class is, then you're still grappling with it. So Bina is a process. It's a process to actually, we say, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Right? That's Chachma. Hashem is a creator. Hashem is my father. Hashem is a king. That's all Chachma. That's just a flash. What does that mean practically to me in my life? So if Hashem is my father, it means that Hashem cares about me. If Hashem is my king, it means that if I'm in trouble, Hashem could rescue me. So start thinking about it. So we say Shema Yisrael, and why do we say Shema Yisrael so many times a day? Why do we daven Shema Yisrael so many times a day? It's not because I need to get more information. It's not. I'm not trying to get more information. I'm trying to uncover a deeper layer. I'm trying to get to the depth of what it really means. And why do I say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem? First of all, it seems repetitious. And why do I say Echad and not Yachid? Echad, Hashem is one. There's also one Empire State Building. To think about it. I know we're very busy. We don't always have time to think things through. We don't have time to think about thinking. But that's if we want to have a connection to an infinite God, the way to do it. How can I feel passionate about Hashem? How can I be excited about Hashem? I could do that. You know how? By taking the time to think about Hashem, not just in Chachma, but also in Bina. Get more information, bring it down, make it relevant to me, and then go to the depth of it. So in Tanya, there are three words to explain. There are three words to explain Bina. One is Kisha Mizbainen. Mizbainen comes from the shorish of Bina, and it means contemplate. And contemplate has the two aspects of breadth and length. That's Mizbainen. The first thing is you want to have Bina. You want to bring down this Chachma, this concept that Hashem is one. First is Mizbainen, which is get more information and make it relevant to you. Then comes Uma'amik. Ma'amik means to delve deeply. And delve deeply means, okay, now I have enough information, but now every time I'm going to revisit it, I'm going to try to uncover another layer to get deeper and deeper. Every time I learn the parsha, it's a new parsha. it's a joke when it comes to, there was a mother and she was in shul, and she hears she's in shul by Kriyas Torah, and she starts crying. Why is she crying? Because in the Torah, the Baal Korah is reading about Yosef, and Yosef gets thrown into the pit, and how his brothers treated him so terribly. And she cries 1 year, and she cries 2 years, and she cries 3 years. Comes the fourth year, and she doesn't cry anymore. Say, why are you not crying? This story, it took you. She says, by now, Yosef already should learn his lesson. He should have already learned his lesson. But really, but what was he doing there? He shouldn't have gone. He should have read the parsha last year. But when we read the story again and again, it's understand it more deeply. It's not just the story that happened then. The sibling rivalry. Guess what? It's happening in my house right now. To make a personal, what lesson can I learn from it? Whatever it is. And every year, another layer, deeper and deeper. That's umamik. Kashem is bainen. Is this? Mamik is the foot of the hay, to go deeper, 3-dimensional. And then it says mi'oid. Mi'oid. What does mi'oid mean? What does mi'oid mean? Mi'oid is not a word that's translated very... okay, so mi'oid you think of as very, right? So let me ask you a question. You daven in Shema Yisrael every day, right? Multiple times a day. What do you say? Hashem... right, so you say, B'chal levavcha, Hashem, I love you so much, I'm going to serve you, B'chal levavcha, with all the dimensions of my heart, B'chal nafshecha, and with my soul, right? What more is expected of you? I love you so much, Hashem, I'm going to serve you with all my heart and with all my soul. Is there anything else? And then we say, B'chal ma'adecha. What does it mean? And it's not only me'oid, but me'oidecha, your me'oid. What does me'oid mean? What does me'oid mean? Me'oid is as follows. There are many different souls. I'm going to serve Hashem with all my soul, right? Many different souls. Every soul has a different nature. One soul, their nature is they like to learn. So v'chol nafshcha means, Hashem, I love you so much, I'm going to go to every shiur that I can. Every class that I'm going to go. Hashem, I love you so much, I'm going to serve with with all my soul. Another person, their nature, they're very, very kind. They like to give to people. Hashem, any person that I know that had a baby that needs food, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna make food for them. I'll go and I'll help them. That's nafshecha. Ma'adecha is to go beyond my soul, beyond the nature of my soul. What's wow for me, what's hard for me to go out of my box, that's my ma'od. What's a lot, what feels a lot for me, that's ma'adecha. So it's every person has a different ma'adecha. To go out of your box, to go out of your nature. Hashem, I love you so much. Now I'm going to serve you with my heart and soul. The soul that you gave me, with the nature that my soul has. I'm going to go beyond that. What's like, oh my gosh, that I can't do. That's too much. What's too much? That is your ma'id. And why is that so important? Because mi'aidecha, that is a very, very special tool. That is a tool of infinity, because I'm going beyond what I think I can do. And in order for me to connect with and love with and be passionate about and be drawn to an infinite God, I need an infinite tool. So me'aidecha, me'aid, that's the infinite tool that I have to bridge that gap between a finite human being and an infinite God. So again, what's Bina? Bina is a 3 or 4 step process. Number one is Kisha Mizbainin, which is this and this. Breadth and length is Kisha Mizbainin. So that's like 2 parts in one. Then is Ma'amik, depth. and then is me'oid. Keshem is bainen umamik me'oid in the greatness of Hashem, then I'm going to start having an appreciation, and Hashem is going to start being real to me, not just something, Hashem, I'll meet you in Shul on Shabbos, but rather that Hashem becomes real to you when you do this 3-4 step process of Kashem Izbainen, Umamik, and Me'oid. Okay.
Is Me'oid the empty space in the eye?
That's a good question. Okay. It could be. That's a very interesting thing, because that could represent infinity.
It's so much space.
Yeah. And it's not defined. It's beyond what I'm writing. Okay, that's a beautiful interpretation. Okay. Okay, so now what do we want to do now? We want to know for each of these 3 levels, Keshem Izbainen, Ma'amik, and Ma'oid, is another contemplation, another thing that we should think about. We're bringing it down, not just, think about greatness of Hashem. We're going to give you the Alter Rebbe gives us real ideas, real concepts to think about, each one matching another layer of this Bina. So the first one is Kishem Izbainen, when you contemplate. What should I contemplate on? What should I think about? My neshama wants to understand something that shouldn't be understandable. Hashem shouldn't be understandable. So what should I think about? What should I think about? My soul wants to connect to Hashem in a meaningful way. But the only way that it can connect to Hashem in a meaningful way is if I know something about it. I need information. I need information about Hashem in order to contemplate on it, in order to reach this meaningful connection with Hashem. So what should I think about? What information? So we said, Kishim Izbainen is just getting information. Number one, I have to get more information about Hashem and start thinking about it to get the breadth and the length in order to start this incredible relationship with an infinite God. So everyone knows that Hashem exists. That's Chachma. But that doesn't make it meaningful and real to me. So what should I think about? What is Hashem's greatness? What is so great about Hashem? The first thing I have to think about is a concept called Mimale Kol Olmin, that Hashem fills all the worlds. Okay. The second one, we're just going to say what they are, and then we're going to talk about them. The first one is that Hashem fills all the worlds, Mimale Kol Olmin. The second one is that Hashem is Saivev Kol Olmin, that Hashem surrounds all the worlds. And the third one is in Aramaic, and the translation is that everything before him is as worthwhile as nothing. Those are the 3 things that we're going to contemplate on in order to achieve this level of Bina. So number one, we have to know that we are not alone. What do we mean by that we are not alone? This world, as great as it is not the only thing that exists. There's an entire universe. And there are spiritual worlds that on a regular day we don't even think about. There are so many multiple worlds beyond this world. And each world is more sublime, more spiritual, more great. So if I stand on earth and I say, wow, look at the heaven. That is, look at the heaven. That is as much as that is as helpful as standing on the beach and saying, wow, look at this ocean. How much information did that give you? There's an ocean here. It doesn't mean much if I just say, oh, there's an ocean, because there are millions of species that are living in the ocean. And just telling you, oh, there's an ocean here, I have no idea how deep the ocean is. There is so much beyond. I'm standing on the beach and I see an ocean. What am I seeing? I'm seeing the surface. I'm just the surface of, and there's so much beyond it. So when I stand on earth and I say, wow, there's a heaven, there's heaven, and you know what? There's a lot beyond just heaven. You think, well, just the fact we're looking up to heaven, that's already, that's already amazing. We're so busy, with our lives. Just to even stop and think about heaven in the first place is already amazing. The Talmud tells us that from here to the first heaven is a distance of 500 years of travel. Just from here to get to the first heaven, or the first spiritual heaven. Now, each spiritual heaven, to get from the lowest point of that spiritual heaven to the highest point of that spiritual heaven, is another 500 years of travel. Now, and then there are 7 heavens. Now we know this in Chacham, because when we say Hashem Echad, Aleph is representing God, one God. Ches is representing one earth and 7 heavens. And Dalet is the 4 corners is the 4 directions of the world, right? So there are 7 heavens. So now start doing the math. From here to the first heaven is 500 years of travel. Each heaven is 500 years of travel to get from the bottom to the top. And there's 500 years of travel in between each of the heavens. And we're standing here thinking that, that we know it all. So I'm saying just that. Just start contemplating. You want to try to awaken inside of you the greatness of Hashem. Just start thinking about. Forget about what's in each world. The angels and who knows what's in what. Forget about thinking about what's in each world, the power in each world. And remember, each world is higher and greater and more powerful. Just to think about the greatness of the space of all this that Hashem is a creator of is already mind-boggling. And each world is more dramatic and more sophisticated and more powerful than the world before it. Okay, imagine we're having a Tanya class. Imagine that no one could prove us wrong, but imagine that outside there's an ant hill, and there are ants, and they're also having a Tanya class. And one of the ants is a very big philosopher in Tanya, and he's teaching all the ants. He's teaching philosophizing about the whole world. And he's explaining to the ants that there's a concept called a cat. A cat is so big that if you were to take a few billion ants and put them together, then you would get the size of a cat. Imagine that the ants are having this discussion, right? And the human being who, let's say, understands the language of the ants is sitting and listening to this class and saying to himself, "Oh boy," talking to the thinking about the ants, you haven't begun to understand what exists out there. If all you could talk about is one cat, all you could think about the distance between the anthill and the garbage can, that is huge for a little tiny ant. And then tell the ant that there's something called a human being. So a cat, if it takes billions of ants to make up the size of a cat, how much more so a human and the sophistication of a human? Okay, so we're like that little ant trying to discover the world, and all we could discover is we can't even get past the garbage can. Okay, so if you just take a few minutes, imagine just like an ant, just like we're laughing, but it's just as much absurd for us to try to connect with an infinite God. Who do we think we are? The whole universe is a speck. And think about what it would take how long it would take on a spaceship to get out of the solar system. Now start thinking about Milky Way, and I don't even know what's beyond there. Right? It's incredible. And there's billions of stars, and there's billions of angels, and who knows? And just like the ant can't even think, the ant that's in your backyard can't even think past the backyard. And imagine what the angels are thinking when the angels are looking at us, and we're like, wow, there's a whole universe, and there's a solar system, and there's a Milky Way, and the angels are looking at us and say, all that's as big as the backyard of one angel. When was the last time we tried to process that or think about that? And then what does Hashem do? Hashem is so great. This is what he created, and yet mimale kol omin, Hashem fills all the worlds. And it doesn't say Hashem creates all the worlds, which is true. It doesn't say that Hashem manages all the worlds, which is true. It doesn't say that Hashem watches over all the worlds, which is true. It says Hashem mimale, Hashem fills all the worlds. When I say fill, what do you think of? Okay, when was the last time you used the word fill in a sentence? I'm going to the gas station, right, to fill up my tank, right? So as soon as I say fill, or what else do you think of?
Fill a pot. That's right.
Okay, to fill a pot, or I'm full. Everything in Judaism has to come down to food.
To anything else.
Right. So a pitcher, right? Or you could have your Shabbos meal, and you have a bunch of people by your Shabbos meal. One person, they're so full they're too full for dessert, and another person is asking for seconds. So when it comes to being full, right? It's a relative term. It's a very relative term. Between two people at a Shabbos table, one person could be plotzing, another person is still hungry.
But people go to the gas tank to the full one.
Okay. So now, you're going to the gas station. Now, do you want to fill a cup? Do you want to fill a barrel? So when it comes to, or do you want to fill a swimming pool? When it comes to filling up, different things get filled differently at different speeds. In different amounts. Yes. So Hashem, what does Hashem do? Hashem is so great that he knows the exact amount of energy that every single thing needs in order to exist. From a tiny ant to a human being, to an angel, to everything. And Hashem fills each thing with just the right amount of energy so that it could survive and exist at its level. And this is incredible because everything, if you don't fill it enough, right, then it can't exist. It can't work. It doesn't have enough power. It can't work.
And he has to constantly do it.
And he has to constantly do it every single second. Amazing. That's right. And if you overfill it, then it's going to break. Think of a balloon. You need just the right amount of air. If it's not right amount of air, then it's going to be floppy. If you blow too much, it's going to bust, right? It's going to burst. So you need to have just the right amount of air in the balloon to keep it, that it should have a nice shape, that it should look good. It shouldn't be too little, and it shouldn't be too much. And that's what Hashem is doing. Although there are so many, this universe, this, I don't know what you want to call it, is so vast. There's 500, when you got calculators, 500 times times
Seven
times
seven.
times 7, and then in between, in between each one is another 6. And years of travel, and yet for all these worlds and all these years of travel and every single thing inside of each of these worlds, Hashem is giving each one exactly amount of energy that it needs, like a balloon. So I'm sitting in traffic, praying for Hashem, just make the light green because my schedule is so important and I can't be 1 minute late. At the same time that Hashem is making the light green, right? He's also worrying about a caterpillar, a hungry caterpillar that needs nutrition and protection. At the same time, he's also thinking about the angel Michael that needs whatever it needs to be able to fulfill its mission, all at the same time. We're talking about multitasking. We think we can multitask. Yeah, I can multitask, but don't bother me because right now I'm so busy. I can't, I'm trying to make a grocery list. Don't ask me what's for dinner. I can't hit one thing at a time, right? So we think we have a hard time multitasking, and Hashem is multitasking every single second and filling up every single thing with just the amount of power that it needs in order to exist on this earth. So we think that davening is a time that I should ask Hashem for what I need, right? And I could also say thank you for what you gave me. And that is very, very on the surface. That's like a child that's saying, I was good, so telling their parent I was good, so please give me a prize. That's what we think davening is. Hashem, this is what I need. Thank you very much for what you gave me. I need more of this, I need more of that, a little more money, a little more health, a little more gashmias. But what is davening? Davening is supposed to be a meditative process. Learning is chachma. Wow, that's brilliant. Davening, I'm supposed to meditate. And Hasidim would meditate for hours in davening, because when it says, when we say, Gadol Hashem, all, whether it be davening, whether it be tehillim, and we speak about Hashem created mountains, and you make the wind blow, and you make the rain, and you give every animal what it needs. All this is not supposed to be lip service. It's supposed to be contemplation. And the more we think about it, the more we're enamored by God. And sometimes we're davening in our living room. Sometimes we're davening in shul. Sometimes, if a person's maybe they're on a trip, maybe on the vacation, davening outside by a tree, just one tree, just one plant. If you just stop and think about what it takes for this plant to exist. Okay, so now you say, okay, amazing. I'm just going to sit and think about, just look out the window. Just look out the window. The rain, the fall, the colors, the trees, all the it's incredible. But don't get stuck there. The Malach Omen. You can't get stuck there. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. But there's something so much greater. And that's so everything that we just said, that's Kashem is Bainin. Try to get more information and realize that when we say Hashem Echad, when we're talking about Hashem, what did Hashem create? What are we talking about? What are we even talking about? So to start thinking about all the world and all the creations and how Hashem fills everything up, that's getting more information this way, more information that way. But now we're going to another whole different level. We're going deeper. We're going deeper. We have to realize Memalek Kol Omin is nothing compared to Seviv Kol Omin, which means that Hashem surrounds all the worlds like a circle. Mimalik Omin is very individual. We could have a Tanya class, and every person here is going to walk out of the Tanya class with different information in their head. Why? Because some people maybe learned this before, maybe they have more information, maybe they did more research on the topic. Some people maybe are more tired than other people, so their brain is not functioning 100% to be able to retain as much. And every person is coming with their experience and with their powers. So every person is going to come out of this class with a different amount of information. They understood it differently. They got this out of it. This person understood this person understood that. It's very, very individual. That is memalikul omen. Each person, according to how much they could absorb, according to how much they could process. Then there's a whole nother level, and that is Soviv Kolomin. Now, if I were to tell you, okay, we're all sitting here, right? And I'm going to turn to the light. I'm going to say, light, today there's 15 people around the table, so I need light for 15 people. It doesn't work that way. When it comes to light, either the light is on or the light is off. The light is not going to have a discussion and give light more or less according to how many people are here. The light is shining whether you're here, whether you're not. And that's why about once a month, maybe it's once a week, maybe it's once a day, we tell our children, why did you leave the light on? If you're not in the room, close the light when you go out, because because the light is going to shine whether there's people in the room or whether there isn't people in the room. The light is not the light is a concept of Seviv Kol Omin. It surrounds. It's not according to the person. The light is just shining. So if you're not in the room, just turn off the light, because the light is not going to turn off by itself. The light is going to give light whether you're there, whether you're not there, unless you turn it off. It doesn't relate to the person's experience. Comes Friday night and comes Friday night and you realize that you forgot to turn off the light in the baby's room. The light's not going to just turn off because you need it to be dark so your baby should go to sleep. There's no discussion. The light is doing its thing. It's not. It doesn't depend on your needs, on what you need right now. Okay. So again, mimala kol omin. I'm just bringing it again to contrast. Mimala kol omin is like a timeline. Every day could be different. Every time in history could be different. Every day of the week could be different. Monday, oh, I hate Monday. Friday, oh, I love Friday. Every day is different. But Seviv Kol Omin is the same wherever you are. It's like a circle. It doesn't matter. We think the people in Australia, right, that they're backwards, that they're upside down, right? Okay, just gravity is keeping them. Gravity is keeping them. They shouldn't fall off the earth. But in truth, we're in the northern hemisphere, so we feel like, oh, we're on top of the world and they're on the bottom. But a circle doesn't work like that. There is no top and there is no bottom. A circle. So in the physical world, yes, gravity, keeps everything on earth. But spiritually speaking, Hashem created this world, and everything it's all in a shape of a circle. A shape of a circle means that there's no top and bottom. There's no beginning and there's no end. And wherever you are on the circle and part of the circle, it's all equal. The heaven is not any closer or further away from me if I'm in the northern hemisphere or in the southern hemisphere. The heaven is a certain distance away from earth, and I could move myself. But heaven is not going to change. I could go on a higher altitude or a lower altitude. I could go on an airplane. I could climb Mount Everest. But the heaven stays. It's set. It's fixed. The heaven is where the heaven is. The earth is where the earth is. And it's not. It doesn't take into account. It doesn't take into account me and my personal preferences or where I am or who I am. That's what it means, Seiviv. Okay, so if I want to ask like this, do you have a personal relationship with the ants that are outside in your backyard? That's ridiculous, right? And if I say to, if I say to you, if I say, oh, I want to be an ant psychologist, and it's impossible. How would you even know who your client is? They all look exactly the same from your perspective, right? So Mamalik Omin is that every single ant has to get exactly the highest that it needs in order to exist. But I don't relate to it. I don't relate to each ant. I'm not going to have a pet ant because I'm so removed from it. I'm so removed from it. And that's me and an ant. So when we say Hashem is Mamalik Kol Amin, Hashem has a relationship with every single thing. Hashem has a relationship with every single thing to give it the amount of chayes that it needs. But at the same time, don't get stuck there. That's incredible. But at the same time, just like I am so far removed from an ant, at the same time, Hashem is so far removed from creation. That's what it means. That's what it means, Seviv Kol Amin. Imagine this. Imagine that there's someone that in your world it's your academic idol. Someone that you really that you're so inspired by them. You download every class that they gave you, every podcast, everything every book that they wrote. You're so into it. This is the person that you idolize, that you think is absolutely brilliant. This is your role model. And one day you get invited to come to this person's house. And you're like beyond excited. You can't sleep the night before. You're going to go meet this person that you're so enthralled with everything that he says. You think he's so brilliant. And finally, the time comes and you come to this person's home. And what do you expect? You're going to be led into his study. There's going to be books all over a big, huge library. You can have that like musty smell of a library. That's what you expect. And you come in and you come to the house. And they lead you through the garden, and they forgot to tell you that at the same time that you're being invited to come to this person's house, his grandchildren are also there. And you get led into the house, and you know what you see? Not a beautiful study. You see a toy room full of toys all over the place. And this amazing scholar, brilliant individual is sitting on the floor going vroom, 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 playing with trucks and choo-choo trains with their grandchildren. So there's two ways of looking at it. First, it could be like, oh my gosh, depends how in touch you are with reality. You'd be like, oh my gosh, everything that I just thought of is just shattered. I thought he was such a brilliant individual, and now look, he's playing with Thomas the Train on the floor. Or you could say, wow. Although this individual is so brilliant and has so many podcasts and has so many lectures and is so world-renowned, but that doesn't stop him from getting on the floor and playing with his grandchildren. That's incredible. Now, this incredible guy, he's not going to tell you, oh, come. Do you also know how to play with Do you also know how to play with Thomas the Train? Do you also want to sit on the floor and play trucks? He's not going to say that, right? So there's a rule when it comes to spirituality, and that is like this. The rule is as follows. Any self-imposed limitations are not limitations at all. Are you going to say, okay, so this great person is sitting on the floor playing trucks. Who is the real him? Who is he? Is he is he a child playing on the floor? Or is he this amazing scholar? Who is he? So he's an amazing scholar. The fact that he's playing on the floor, that doesn't define him. That's what he's doing. And that's what he chooses to do. He chooses to limit himself to go play with his grandchild in the sandbox. Does that mean that he's a child in the sandbox? He might be in the sandbox, but he chose to limit himself, and that is not a limitation at all. If you adopt the limitation, it doesn't chain you. It doesn't turn you into a child. That's not who you become. If you're playing on the floor, you're in the sandbox with your grandchildren or your children, it's not who you become. You remain above. You remain who you are. You remain above, but you chose to engage with your grandchildren. And the same is with Hashem. When we say Hashem is Memalik Kol Amin, that Hashem fills all the worlds, what that means, that is like this incredible, brilliant, most brilliant scholar of the universe playing with his grandchildren. So the fact that Hashem takes the time to fill up each balloon with exactly the amount of air that it needs, the fact that Hashem takes the time to interact with every single ant and give it what it needs, Hashem chose to limit himself. Hashem chose to give us life, to give each of us the existence that we need, but that does not define him. That's what he does. As a matter of fact, when we say Hashem created the world, that's actually an insult. Hashem is the creator. If you stop over there and you say Hashem, want to know what Hashem is, who Hashem is the creator. The fact that Hashem is the creator, that is what he does. It's not who he is. There's so much more than just filling up each thing with what it needs. Filling up with what it needs is like defining the great scholar and saying, oh, he's a 2-year-old child. He's not a 2-year-old child. He chose to limit himself to play with a 2-year-old child, but that doesn't define him and change who he is. So the first level of Memalik Kol Amin is when we know and we contemplate about what we know. We know that there's a world, we know that there's a universe, we know that there's a tree, and we try as much as we could to know as much as we could. That's Memalik Kol Amin. Then comes a point where we say, okay, I know everything I know. Then there's a higher level. And the only way to define Hashem on that level is to say what I don't know. For example, if I ask you, what is spirituality? Define spirituality. Exactly. It's not physical. So to define what it is, I have to say what it's not. That's what it means, Sayyid Kol Amin. It's a higher level where I can't tell you what it is. I can tell you what it's not. It's not a child. It's not a brilliant scholar playing on the floor with their grandchild. What it is, I don't know what it is. I can only tell you what it's not. That's Sayyid Kol Amin. That's the next level.
It's like the story where the king once asked his people, who can give me the biggest compliment? And everyone's trying to define what the king did. One person said, you don't have a pimple on your nose. You're everything, but like he boiled it down to you have no flaws. This is like the only thing that he was able to bring out of him.
Yeah. Exactly. So
rather he probably doesn't even have whatever.
Yeah, if you say, oh, you don't even have a pimple on your nose, how is that? What are you saying? What are you describing? That's nothing. It's nothing. So yes, we have to start with what is relatable. We have to start with this world because that's what we know. And then we have to expand what we know and realize that there's so much more. There's so much more to the universe, and there's the universe, and there's all the spiritual world, and there's all the angels. And we have to know that Hashem is the one that's the power that makes all this work. Hashem is so limitless, but it's an insult to define Hashem and say, what is Hashem? Hashem is the creator. I'll give you another example. You know, in a lot of schools, they have show and tell. And then in some schools, they have that the parents could come to school and speak to the children about their profession. You bring your daddy, you bring your mommy to school. So there's, I don't even know how to pronounce it. His teacher asks him, so what does your father do? He says, my father is a aeronautical engineer. Someone who deals with anything, spaceships and aircrafts, how to engineer all these kind of things. So the teacher says, wow, so how do you know your father is so brilliant? He says, I'll tell you how I know he's so brilliant. When I came home from school one day, I asked my father, what's 3 plus 6? And he told me the answer without counting on his fingers. That's how I know how brilliant he is. The teacher says, wow, that's amazing. For a first grade, that's amazing. So the day comes and the father comes to school and the teacher introduces the father and he says, he is so brilliant. He's an aeronautical engineer. And you know how smart he is? He can tell you what's 3 plus 6 without counting on his fingers. So in a first grade, that's pretty embarrassing. But in a first grade class, it's not so terrible because they're in the first grade. But what happens if this guy is invited to come to a prestigious university, and they introduce him and say, Dr. So-and-so, he's the nautical engineer, and guess what? He could tell you what's 3 plus 6 without counting on his fingers. That is disgusting. That is a disgusting. It's a slap in his face. To introduce him and say, oh, he could tell you what's 3 plus 6 without counting on his fingers. That's ridiculous. So for us, when we say that Hashem could fill all the worlds, that's not a compliment for Hashem. That impresses us. That impresses the first grader. That's not what impresses that. That's not the extent of it. That's nothing. And what's incredible is that the tiniest ant on the floor, thank you so much for coming, the tiniest ant on the floor in relation to Hashem, the distance between the tiniest ant on the floor and Hashem, that distance is the same as the most brilliant scholar and God. It's just as insignificant. So this is just two of the three. This is just two of the three. This is just Mizbainen and Ma'amik. This is the 2 out of the 3 meditations to try to get a little bit of Bina. And I'll just end with a story about the Alter Rebbe. In the first Chabad Rebbe, in those days, the people got married at a very young age in their teens. And then the chassan would go to a yeshiva for a few years and would be supported by the father-in-law. So the Alter Rebbe got married, and then he had 2 choices. He could either go to Vilna, that's what, the incredible yeshivas in Vilna, or he could go to Mezrich. And Mezrich, in those days, that's where the Hasidim were, and that was considered the cult. And people were so against Hasidim that it literally broke up families. If someone was into the cult, it was terrible. That's how they perceived it. And the Alter Rebbe, he chose to go to Mezrich. And he comes back after a few years, and his father was so angry. He was so upset. And he said, to tell me, what did you learn in Mezrich? That you had to go to Mezrich, you couldn't go to Vilna. So he says, I'll tell you what I learned. I learned that there is a God. And the father was furious. What do you mean you learned that there's a God? He calls over the Maria, the cleaning girl. And he says, tell me, is there a God? She says, yes, there's a God. He says, you see, Maria knows that there's a God. You have to go to Mezrich for a few years to know there's a God. So he says, she says there's a God. I know that there's a God. And know comes from, this is Bina, to really know that there's a God. It's a whole different thing. And you'll find in Yiddishkeit, in the Rambam, nowhere does it say that we have a mitzvah to believe in God. It doesn't say that. It says, da alekei avicha. Know your God. Belief is very good. A lot of people believe in God. Lots of different nations believe in God, and it's good they should believe in God, because then maybe they'll behave. But we are ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim. We have the belief, we have it in our DNA. Something more is expected of us. Da alekei avicha. We have to know God. Why? We have to learn. We have to think about it. We have to contemplate about it. We have to think. Why? Because through knowing, that's how we're going to give birth to. That's how we're going to have love and fear and awe, where's that going to come from? When it says we love Hashem, how do you expect me to love Hashem? If I love chocolate ice cream, how are you going to get me to love vanilla ice cream? Well, I like this. How can you expect me to love? How can you expect me to love another Jew? How can you expect me to love Hashem? When I learn about what another Jew is, when I learn about what Hashem is, then I'm very attracted and I'm enamored. And I'm so excited. And I'll do anything for Hashem. How? It's all about Chachma, Bina, Das. So Chabad is not just a nice name for organization. Chabad is a path. It's a path to spiritual growth.
Interesting, Yada. This is like in the Torah is man and woman coming together and like impregnate.
Yes, but Adam Yada Chava, and yes, and that's Das. This Chacham Bina Das. This chapter, we still have to. What's left for us to learn in this chapter is number one, the third contemplation, the third meditation, third thing to meditate on, and to understand this concept of Das is all going to be God willing next week. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Fabulous.
I agree.
Like so new, like it's.
I know. I